Hey guys, Mr. Lalamandir again. We're going to be working today with textures, and specifically we're going to be doing texture landscapes or texture-scapes. Textures in art can be kind of tricky because what you're trying to do is take a flat sheet of paper and make it feel as though if you touched certain areas of that picture it would have a different feeling when you touched it, like texture is. And the rough texture of my grass golf hat right here. The way we're going to do that is simply repeating certain lines over and over again, lines that we've talked about before. And then we're also going to be reviewing real quick some of the things we talked about with landscapes. And we won't spend a lot of time on that because I've already done 2 videos to help you with that. So the first thing I'm going to do today, I'm going to plan out my picture of where I want everything to go. Okay? The one thing I like to do sometimes is I like to not press as hard as I can at first and then go back and add more details. But what you could do is maybe start your drawing in pencil first and then go over it with something else. But in any case, we're just going to quickly plan out our picture here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a horizon line. Okay, if you remember, the horizon line is very important. That shows where the sky will touch the land, and make sure when you are coloring the sky that it does touch the land in a landscape. Okay. The second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start putting in objects in my picture. You can put whatever objects you want in your picture. I'm going to use trees today to kind of keep it kind of simple. But we'll see, what you guys do when you get to doing it. So I hope that line's showing up. I don't want to press really hard to do it. So I'm going to start with my first tree. It's going to be the closest tree, and so it needs to be obviously the largest tree, and it needs to touch the bottom of the picture. That would put it in the foreground. And I like to draw my trees out first, kind of like this. Notice that these lines are not really straight. And I'm going to go ahead and start a sort of texture along the top of this tree. See how my tree went off the page? Now what that does is it really pushes the things back in the distance that I do next. Now I'm going to do another tree. The bottom of this tree is going to be in the middle ground. So it'll be in the middle ground of my picture. And all I'm doing when I'm doing them, to do it kind of quick, you can see how I'm leaving the space open. I'm going to give this one a little grass at the bottom of the tree. 4th grade knows when I do that, that's called seating the tree, giving it a place like it's sitting where it needs to. Okay, and that's just a bumpy line there, that's a zigzag line there, right? The tree in the way in the background, I'm going to sit it on the horizon line. Okay, so now you can definitely see the close one and the one that's the farthest away. Now, the textures that we're going to do now is what's going to give this picture a lot of the feeling of the roughness of the bark, the leafiness of the tree, and the grass, the way it needs to look. And so I'm going to use a variety of markers to do this. If you wanted to do this whole thing in pencil or crayon, you could do that because of the way that we're going to color today. I'm not going to sit up here and fill everything in like I usually would. I'm going to fill it in with lines and textures. Okay, so in the treetop, I'm just going to come up here and start doing a lot of bumpy lines. Now these bumpy lines are upside down. Kind of looks like waves, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to do that in this tree. You could even have the bumpy lines kind of go around like that. They can overlap. They can touch each other. Keeping it kind of simple, I'm going to do that in this tree. kind of looks like I'm scribbling, but I'm actually doing these little bumpy lines, almost like a frog hopping across my page. Then in the tree trunk, I'm going to use a different texture there. I'm actually going to use a broken line. A broken line looks like a line that you would find on the road where it's these dashes over and over again. So all I'm doing here is just these broken lines over and over and over again. Do you see that? Now, that mark, Vincent van Gogh did a lot in his artwork. And we're going to take a quick look at that in just a second. Vincent van Gogh is one of my favorite artists. And he had very, very, very textured filled landscapes. And those textures really did add to the way, the different feelings that he could create in his paintings. You can see a lot of his brush strokes are those dash marks over and over and over again. And each area has a slightly different texture to it, which gives it not only the color, but also a certain feeling that it might be if you were to touch that. His paintings are filled with texture because he worked with really thick paint and he worked quickly. Sometimes he wouldn't even use a brush. He might use his finger, and he even used the paint straight out of the tube on the canvas or on the panel he would work on. But let's get back to our tree and put in our dash marks. And again, I'm just doing this over and over again. Now you could take your time to add other details, like maybe a knot hole with a squirrel or an owl peeking its head out, or other elements in the picture. I'm using these quick lines over and over and over again, just like that, to give my trees their own texture. So I got a different texture in the treetop, different texture in the tree trunk. I'm going to use a different texture in the grass. You can use whatever color you want for your grass. I'm going to use orange today. Don't know why, I just feel like it. And in the grass, and again, you could use any line you want for your texture in the grass. I'm going to choose a zigzag. And I'm going to do it kind of quick. You see that little zigzag right there, right? I didn't seat the tree that's up on the horizon line because the tree up on the horizon line is very far away. I might not see those separate little blades of grass on that tree. Again, I'm using marker. You could be doing this with crayon. You could be doing this with paint, whatever you think you want to use. And again, I'm just filling in with zigzags over and over again. I like using sometimes unusual colors for different areas, like the grass being the orange instead of green. That gives it a whole different feeling than if everything was the same color. Almost has a feeling of fire if you kind of look at it. Maybe it could be a grass fire. Now in the sky, I'm going to keep that simple. I'm going to make it nice and airy and flowing. And I'm going to do that with the use of a very smooth, sort of wavy line, almost like you would see waves in the ocean. And I want it to be very gradual. Don't be afraid to go up to the edge of your paper. Don't be afraid to go up to the edge of each object. Okay, again, filling it in with just the lines, just textures. Now, that's my finished picture with the lines. Now, what you could do, if you want to try this, you might want to do this one first and maybe do another one. What you can do if you use washable markers, you can just take plain water and spread some of that color around, and you'll still see those lines. You'll still see the texture. But you would then also have color filling in between those lines too. That can be tricky. It can get kind of messy, so you want to practice that first if you want to. But otherwise, take a stab at your own landscape, put as many different objects, many different things as you want, and then make sure each area not only has a different color, but each area also has a different texture. All right, have fun.